Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. It's KLOS New and Approved. My guest needs no introduction. He's an amazing guy, an incredible character and human being, and his name is Dee Snider. Dee, it's so good to see you, man. How you doing?
Likewise, Matt. It's been a minute, and glad you're kicking ass still. I mean, one of the most guys. There's few people I could talk music with, like with you. You're just like your knowledge is just insane. And when we start talking, it's actually my brother Mark is the other one. And you know Mark, he's a record guy, radio guy for as well for a long time. But I always love talking to you.
Yeah, it's great talking to you, Dee. All the interviews we've done over the years I've really enjoyed them, and you've just shared so much cool information and great advice for other musicians. And I'm really happy to have you here with the new fifth studio album that you have out, which is called Leave a Scar. Man, I love this song, Time to Choose. I mean, this song absolutely is fierce, man. It rocks. And I was listening to it. I was like, I know the Metallica guys would love this track too, because it kills. Talk to me about this new record and the guys that you worked with on the latest album.
You know, I actually in 2019, I had told family, friends, band management that I was packing it in as far as recording and live performing. I didn't make a big deal about it. There's too much flag waving about retiring these days, Matt.
Yeah.
And nobody goes through with it. So, and look, here I am with a new record out. So, but at the time, I really thought maybe I was done. But then the world just, imploded. I don't know what word I can use on the radio, but between COVID and the state of politics around the world, I just felt inspired to speak out. And Matt, I haven't written a song since '95. I have not been doing any songwriting. So I reached out to Jamie Josta. The first time I've ever used the same producer on two albums in a row. I didn't even think twice about that. Josta did such an amazing job on For the Love of Metal.
He did.
And my same production team. And I said, guys, I'm ready to do a new record. And this time I want to be a part of the writing process.
That's great. And it came out amazing. There's so many cool songs on this record. It's amazing, Dee, when you think about it, because I know recently I was watching you do with the rest of the original Twisted Sister members, it was like a Zoom streaming thing where you guys were talking about the history of the band. It was really cool. You guys were all on there, and I really enjoyed that, because I go back to, knowing and hearing about Twisted Sister as this teenage kid growing up and not being old enough to get into clubs, but just hearing what a badass you were live, and all the stuff. Even when you did originals, but the covers you did was stuff that I loved. You know what I mean? So whether it's Bowie or that more glam era of Bowie, or the different rock songs that you guys were doing. So I first discovered that I can buy a record when I find a 7-inch of I'll Never Grow Up Now and Under the Blade at a Crazy Eddie's record store in New Jersey. And I saw it. I went, Twisted Sister, I got to have that record. I want that. and I bought that. And, I always said this, even through, the hair metal 80s, I said, well, what truly one of the originals, it deserves so much credit, is Twisted Sister. And then it made me so happy when you guys started having success, and you guys just blew up, and obviously the success with MTV, and I thought you were in your rightful place at that period of time.
Thanks, man. And what people don't know about the band, well, first of all, it's a great documentary, and we didn't actually make it. We just participated in the process, and now it's called We Are Twisted Blanking Sister, which really shows how long and hard we worked to get where we got. But what a lot of people don't know is, how many bands grew up in the tri-state areas watching Twisted Sister, not just Bon Jovi and Cinderella and Kix and Poison, but Overkill, Anthrax, Carnivore, so many, Public Enemy. Chuck D said that if there was no Twisted Sister, there would be no Public Enemy. We were that band that everybody went to see, and I think we inspired different things in different people. Obviously, in bands like Overkill and Anthrax, it was speed metal, and in bands like Bon Jovi and Cinderella, it was more of what became known as hair metal. Even though when we started out, it was just called metal. We were just a weird metal band.
Yeah, you were a cool metal band that had that hybrid of great influence from like with the original 70s glam stuff, which I loved so much as a kid too, you know, whether that was Kiss or Bowie's Ziggy era or whatever it happened to be, you know, so, but it was just incredible to see, you know, how influential the band always was. I think the thing that was also cool, D, was you were always just a guy who always challenged the audience in a confrontational but cool way. I mean, you just would, I mean, when you walked out on stage, I mean, you knew there was a front man in the room. You know what I mean? I don't care where you were entertained if you were in the back of the room. Talk to me about that. Who were your idols? When you were a kid, who were you listening to? What records were like blowing you away? What kind of stuff were you into? You must have liked everything, right?
You know, I joined Twisted Sister, you know, and they were a New York Dolls inspired band, started in 1973, literally coming out of the glitter, what they called the glitter rock era back then, of Alice and Bowie and Mott the Hoople, T-Rex, Slade, bands like that.
Yeah.
And I love that stuff. I love those bands. But I also I'm a day one metalhead. I'm the guy who had the first Sabbath album, first Zeppelin album, first Blue Cheer, first Grand Funk when the albums were released.
Yeah.
And it was called hard rock back then. It wasn't called metal. So when I joined Twisted, I was joining a glitter band and I loved it. I love the New York Dolls. But I also had my AC/DC and my Nugent and Aerosmith and Priest and, you know, all these heavier bands that I was into, Montrose and so many of these great bands, metal bands. So I brought all those things to when I was there. As far as being a front man, you know, it's very interesting because my parents didn't let me go to concerts until I was about 15 years old. They, you know, I wasn't one of those kids who was hitting, you know, like JJ tells about going to the Fillmore when I think he was 10 or something. I don't know. Yeah. He would walk down the street and I'd go into the Fillmore, you know, and I saw God. And I'm like, yeah, well, I wasn't allowed to see God. And there was no videos. There was nothing. It was photographs. And you'd sit there looking at those album covers and I'd look at these pictures of Alice Cooper, one of my biggest heroes, and I'd say, look at he's doing this.
Yeah.
And I go, how did he get from point A to point B? Well, this must be how he did it. And I sort of invented what I do, assuming that's what Alice Cooper did. I didn't see Alice till we toured with him in the 2000s. The first time I ever saw Alice Cooper and I watched him, I go, we are nothing alike. I completely put all the pieces together wrong. I made a different monster. So, but maybe that's for the best because I'm Dee and he's Alice, you know, and we both coexist very nicely.
You absolutely do. I mean, that's the amazing thing. You know, one of the other things I got to say is, I mean, just the way that you've always been so greatly outspoken, and it was so important what you were doing now with all the crazy politics. And I happen to agree with a statement you made recently because I think all politicians are snakes. So I'm just not a fan of the way I see everything happening and playing out in the world. Not a big fan of politicians, but I will say that what you did for the PMRC when you went and you testified, you, John Denver, I think Zappa was there. I mean, the people, It was really incredible. Now, for those people who may or may not remember that was the PMRC. That was the thing that was put together by senators' wives. Al Gore's wife, Tipper, was one of the ones who spearheaded that, and it was about putting stickers on labels and censoring rock and roll and whatever, and any music, really. It could have been the precursors of hip-hop and funk and soul. They just wanted those stickers on there, and it was amazing the way that you went out there and spoke so intelligently in dealing with that. So I want to talk to you about that. And I also want to say, wasn't it one of the funniest moments in history when the senator was reading the lyrics to Golden Showers by the Mentors? From the album, You Asked For It.
I remember the words to this day. I'll make some of my anal vapor, use your face for toilet paper. Like, oh my God. And it wasn't, everybody was laughing.
Yeah, how could you keep a straight face in a courtroom or in a hearing when these guys are reading these ridiculous lyrics that were obviously meant to offend by a band that was pretty much a joke but funny, the Mentors. Their album was called You Axed For It and had a bunch of guys with axes and women crawling up a stair. It was just, you know, it was over the top on purpose. But the fact that they focused on that, what was that experience like for you, Dee? When you, after you did that, I mean, it was one of those things that people all of a sudden realized just, how intelligent you were. I'm not saying they didn't notice that before, but they realized.
Oh, they didn't notice it before. They thought I was a frothing animal before that. I was a shock to the system when I went in there and spoke intelligently. First thing I just want to remind people, this was a censorship issue, and people, because Al Gore was, a name they know, a Democrat, they have twisted it around. I think it was a Democratic thing, a left-wing agenda. It was absolutely bipartisan, and it was one of the few things they could agree on. The Republicans and Democrats can't agree on much, but censoring rock and roll music, that they agree on. And Matt, I was just in the gym yesterday, and they were playing I don't know, hardcore rap, but they were playing hardcore rap, and there's no metaphor. There's no censoring. I don't know what we can't say, but we use phrase like, sink the pink, and let me put my love into you, all this kind of sort of this metaphorical, suggestive lyrics. The hip hop stuff that came years later just calls it exactly like it is. I think if they realized what was coming down the pike, they wouldn't have wasted their time on Twisted Sister and Wasp, for sure. But after the aftermath was not good, man. I mean, long term, people, I get a lot of respect. Not a day goes by that someone like you does, or anybody walks up. They walk up down the street and just shake my hand and go, "Thank you for fighting censorship." But at the time, the industry sort of just folded, agreed to the sticker before Frank and I even opened our mouths. They agreed to that warning parental advisory sticker. Frank said, "Why are we here?" They already agreed to a sticker, and then most of the bands just kept their mouths shut, and we were sort of left. We were hung out to dry. My packages were checked, my mail was checked, my phones were tapped. I became public enemy number one, and all I did was speak up and out intelligently against people and showed them how wrong they were. And I guess senators didn't like to be embarrassed like that on a public stage like I did. So it wasn't a great thing short term, but long term, it's I would do it again in a heartbeat. I believe and people now recognize that I did the right thing and I stood for the right things.
You did stand for the right things, and ultimately, it had the exact adverse effect to what they really wanted. Kids saw the warning sticker on there, and went, "I got to buy this record." I mean, I hear that from young people all the time. That I bought that record because it said parental advisory on it. So it had the exact opposite effect, ultimately.
Well, the downside, this was my major concern, and this happened, was that I was worried that they would use that sticker to segregate the albums, to not put them in the racks, and certain chains wouldn't even carry them if they had a sticker. And even worse, Walmart and Best Buy forced record companies to produce edited versions and didn't tell people they were buying an edited version.
Oh, you wouldn't believe it. You're right. Because as an A&R guy, I did A&R at Columbia Records for 7 years. I became a VP of A&R there. And a band like Coheed and Cambria, who I signed, I had to put out clean versions of their albums. And sometimes it wasn't even a curse word. It was just what they thought might offend people. And so I had to do different versions for Walmart, different versions for Best Buy, different versions for Target. You know what I mean? It was like whatever. You had. And
that was a bigger concern. It's one thing informing people. It's another thing deciding what people can and cannot hear. And that really, their concerns were about 10 and 12-year-olds. Well, 16, 18, 25-year-olds were going in to buy the first Kid Rock album, and that great album. Had a song on there called F Off, which was in my movie Strangeland. And that was you didn't get that record when you went to Walmart. You did not get that same album.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, speaking of that, I've got to ask you, and it's funny, I made that blanket statement. I'm sure there are some great politicians out there, but what I see lately in politics, always has me questioning some people's motivations and certainly their actions. That's all I'm going to say, because I know you were asked recently by my friend Lindsay Parker over at Yahoo. You were asked if you'd ever get into politics, and you said, "No, I don't think I want to do that." Right?
A lot of people have asked me. I mean, I had somebody call one day and say, "Dee, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, I'm starting one of those PACs. I'm putting together to bring you into politics." I'm like, "Dude, do not do that."
Yeah.
I've said that I've been up close and personal with politicians, and they are not there for our best interests. They may start out that way, but the pressure on from different groups and organizations, they get changed, they get corrupted, and an honorable, truthful, honest, smart person could not survive in the world of politics. You would either have to change who you were to work with the system. And I get that some people say, you know what, that's the only way I'm going to do it is if I change with and I work within this crappy system. But for anybody who tries to keep their integrity, they're just going to get shown the door. And I'm not sacrificing my integrity. I don't want the job, man.
Yeah.
I don't want the job.
No, I mean, you've got a lot of other stuff that you can do. I mean, and look at all the things that you've done over the years, Dee. Whether it's, you know, I mean, like you've done a ton of shows, you've done movies. I mean, you've done everything from cameos.
Radio, TV, voiceover, acting, reality TV.
Yeah.
I'm right. I've just written my first novel. I've just created a horror TV show that's in development. I created a kids animated television show that's being developed by Peacock. I'm directing my first movie next spring, a screenplay I wrote. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of things. And the last thing I need to add to the pile is, you know, working on going to meetings at the Senate or in an assembly or something.
Hey, can you tell us a bit about that? I love the show. Tell to me about the Peacock show, because they have some great stuff on there.
Somebody called me up. A Tony Award-winning Broadway producer called me up because, what do you think about developing with me a children's animated show? And I said, great, love it. Sounds great. And I hung up. My wife said, you want to do a children's animated show? I said, not until I got that phone call. But the minute he said it, I saw an opportunity. As I don't know if you're a parent, Matt. But
I have two full-grown daughters now. Like they're actually just.
Well, then then you know. And now I'm a grandparent. I suffer through so many bad kid shows.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. The movies, you go to the movie theater, and I remember my youngest daughter going to me, and she meant to say I'm bored, but the funniest thing in the world, she goes, let's go, I'm boring. And she meant to say I'm bored. It was so cute, you know. She was like 3, but even she knew this movie sucked that I was at. So I mean,
and the worst thing is like sitting in the car, and you've got the videos or watching, and you're listening to the songs, these horrible Wiggles songs and Barney songs, and you want to take your own life. You want to just drive off the road and kill the family. I mean, and so I saw an opportunity. I said, oh, you know what? I would love to get involved and be part of creating some music that parents wouldn't hate. And one of the things that Peacock is flipping out over is the songs that I've written, because I wrote I'll just tell you, I just wrote AC/DC songs with kids' lyrics, you know, just straight ahead, good, simple rock and roll with a good, catchy hook. And they go, wow, this is amazing. Why have we heard more stuff like this? I said, because you keep hiring the bands that failed. What did the Wiggles do before they were the Wiggles? They wanted to be rock stars. They sucked. So they went and wrote music for kids. I said, that's not who you hire.
Yeah.
So hopefully when my show finally comes out, parents will not be hating life anymore.
No, that's really important because it makes all the difference in the world. Tell me about the novel that you worked on, Dee.
You know, during this COVID, look, there was glimmers of light in the COVID thing, you know, and I mean, and you had to look for them and say, how can I take this truckload of lemons and make some kind of lemonade? And so one of the things I said, well, you know, there's things I've been wanting to do that I haven't had the time to do, and I'm going to sink my teeth into them. And one of them was writing a fictional novel that I had in mind. And writing a book is I've written my memoirs, but writing a novel is a whole nother thing. And so I wrote it, but unfortunately, it's right now not the flavor of the month. I mean, you got an old white guy writing a book about young white guys growing up in a white neighborhood. Not really what everybody's looking for right now. But you know, I always tell people, and I'm saying to you people out there, you know, part of the most important part of the creative journey is doing it for yourself and getting the satisfaction you get when you say you're going to do something and you did it, and you put the end, and you look and you print it out and you look at it, you go, I did it. I said I would write a book, and I did. Now, I know I will find a publisher for it. I've been working on my writing, Matt, now for well over 3 decades. It's like I've become a very good writer. But you got to remember, you first and foremost, any of these things you do, you got to do for yourself first. And if you aren't happy with it, if you don't like it, you can't expect anybody else to.
That's absolutely true, D. You know, I wrote a memoir a couple of years ago. It came out in 2016. All right, so it got published. But I made sure that it was really true to who I am when I wrote this thing, and that was the most important thing, that it was in my voice, my speak. Although the audible version, of course, I was so busy with a new job that I couldn't do the voiceover as a guy who does James Patterson's books. But it was still kind of surreal and interesting to hear a guy reading your story through that. But writing is one of those things where, again, it's like you something you want to conquer and you want to work on. And speaking of that, one of the things, Dee, that I always loved in one of our past interviews that some people might have missed when I was doing the show for Mark Cuban, was one of the things that you talked about that I thought was just so brilliant and important for young musicians to think about. And I've told people this story many times. I said, Dee Snider said the most honest but gave the best advice to young artists that I've ever heard. And it was about realizing that at some point, things are going to take a downturn at sometimes, and about saving your money. Talk to me about that, Dee, because you saw so much happen, with these artists that we've known or worked with or come into contact with over the years.
Even more than saving your money, the phrase, and especially it really had the opportunity when I was doing morning radio, and I would be in Hartford and interviewing a lot of young artists. I literally grab them and go, parlay. And they go, you mean like have a meeting? I said, no, the other meaning of parlay. That means you got to you don't know how long this run is for. You don't know how if you're gonna get more out of this, or this is all you're gonna get. Whatever you're achieving, you've got to use to take you that energy and that money and all those things to take you to that next thing. I said, and I've had more than a few come up to me and say, thank you. You take thank you. The guys from Lit, the band Lit. I don't know if you know, but they've got a great club over in Anaheim, Club Restaurant, that they opened, and he parlayed the Lit success, which was one album, and Jeremy turned it into a business and an enterprise, and he's doing very well. The guy from Biohazard, he went into porn, Evan Seinfeld.
Yeah, we don't know Evan very well, because I remember he was with Tara Patrick when they started the business. Then he oversaw her business.
But he said, I took your words. I said, I didn't say anything about porn. He goes, well, but I said, hey, man, whatever. He created he took Biohazard. They had some energy. The guys from Guster, they've opened up an ecological company that does, anyway, but many of them have listened to me, and I just try to say, nobody prepares you. We view making it like it's a finish line. And the big surprise is it's not. For some of us, it's another mountain to climb. Others, it's a short plateau and a cliff off the other side.
Yeah.
And the truth is, a very few are in that 0.00001% who are the Ozzies and the Eltons and the Eric Claptons who have this long career. Most of us get a moment in the sun, and then we wake up one day and we're like 30, and we go, well, what now? Yeah. And I was stunned that I had to completely discover new careers for myself. So I try to share that information with younger bands, because you never know what your career is going to hold for you.
Well, what's great is you've been able to obviously move in so many different directions, and that's really one of the great things. And as you said earlier, I love the fact that with you and I, we can always go deep on music. We talk about, like you said, Blue Cheer to Blues Magoos to Montrose to, you name it. Because we're such lovers of rock and roll and metal and everything, really. Even, there's just so much great stuff. So Dee, before, we head, talk to me about the making of this record and how you ended up working on Leave a Scar. Was most of it done remotely when you did it this time around? Did you get to do some of it before everything got locked down, or work in a bubble with some people so that you did have some contact? How was that done?
I've been saying that we're again, that those little glimmers of light in this incredible COVID darkness. And one of them is that technology was up to speed for this. If this was 20 years ago, it would have been a very different game. Kids would have just not had school. Businesses, meetings, none of these meetings like this right here would not have happened. And the recording world had already had the technology where people could record remotely and upload and share. And I had already on the album with first album with Jamie Jasta, For the Love of Metal, I had done some in the studio in Connecticut with Jamie and Nikki Belmore and the band. But there were some tracks that I recorded because I'm out on the West Coast like you now, that I recorded remotely. But Jamie and Nikki are literally in my headphones in real time. And they're hearing exactly what I'm doing as I'm doing it and responding to me as right afterwards. So there was no delay at all. So it was great. And we already had that relationship and that technology. So I was able to go into a local small studio where I knew was COVID safe. And then Nikki and Jamie had a bubble situation up in Connecticut, so were bringing in musicians and whatever, but in a very safe way. And we were able to do the album remotely, and the reviews have been tremendous, Matt. I'm super happy with it, and this is not an album for the weak of heart, people. Yeah. The fountain of youth is get heavier as you get older, and I don't mean put on more weight. I mean get harder and heavier with the music you listen to. The more laid back they start laying back and easing up, you're just going into an early grave. Okay, I'm telling you. I agree.
You know, I never want to
gotta rock. You gotta rock.
You gotta rock. I mean, that's how I feel. I never want to stop working because I love it. I love music. I love rock and roll. I love metal. I just love everything. For me, I never want to stop doing it because it's what gets you up in the morning, man. It's what you love to do. You know,
absolutely, it fires you up, and it's just important. You know, if you just see, imagine you're a shark, and if sharks stop swimming, they die. So never stop swimming. Absolutely, never stop swimming.
You know, on this new record, D, I just want to say that I love the heaviness of it. Like, you know, like I said, you know, Time to Choose. When that song first heard, I was like, dude, this song is right. I could put this next to Master of Puppets. This is like a killer. I just love the feel of this. I
got Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse singing with me on this song. It could not be more brutal. But fear not, fear not, those weak of heart. I definitely, Jamie, I was the one who kept pushing to get heavy. I'm the one who wanted to bring in Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse. I'm the one who kept putting more and more hardcore gang vocals, and Jamie, imagine he had some reins on me and was pulling me back, kept going, D, you've got, you come from another world. It's great you want to move forward, but let's keep one foot there and one foot in the now, and let's bring people with you on this journey that you're on. So you're definitely going to hear this, the Dio influence and that 80s influence, the Metallica influences in there, as well as a lot of contemporary influences. But I'm really I'm trying to bridge the old and the new, because that's how I feel I am. I'm old and I'm new. So I'm new to this world, and I'm an old rocker. So I'm trying to do the best with both worlds.
And you're absolutely doing it. You're successfully doing it, D. Well, you're going to be out on the road. Are you and Brett Michaels are doing some dates right in August? Or is that one date?
I got one. They're one-offs, really. I think that this year I'm sort of, with the exception of a thing here, a thing there, and I'm wondering if that's going to go down with this COVID spike we're having. It's a Illinois State Fair in August, but I'm going, I wonder if it's going to get canceled. I think by 2022, I know people have been saying it, well, 2021 we'll have it under control. No, but I really think by 2022, we'll have figured it out one way or the other. We'll have sorted it out. So that's when I think I'll really get back to playing more live shows. There's a couple, like I said, a couple one-offs. But I really want to, Matt, when I wrote You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, I was writing about parents and teachers and bosses and, and radio and everything. You can't stop rock and roll. I didn't imagine that something would come along that would literally stop rock and roll.
Yeah.
So I want to get out there when 2022 happens and we really get back to these shows. I want to sing that song with a whole new meaning. And I know that people will join with me singing it with a meaning we never imagined. But we can't beat rock and roll. It will be back, and we will be back, and I'll see you all out there.
That sounds great. D, thanks so much for doing this today. It's so great catching up with you, man. Always love talking to you.
Hey, brother, it's a pleasure. Like I said, I'm so glad to hear, we talked a little bit beforehand, just all good things going on in your life. You're a great guy, and great guys we need great guys.
Thank
we
you.
need great guys. So out here, there's too many, excrement heads.
Yeah.
So we need a few great guys.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
pleasure. And next time, you're over at KLOS. I'm in town, brother. Let's come right into the studio.
Yeah.
Let's do something face to face.
Let's do it here next time. I would love that. Absolutely, D. I didn't realize you were. I thought you might still be back east. So next time around, we're definitely doing it in person. It'd be so great to have you
I'm
here.
right down by the beach. You're
not far from me, and I'll tell you, I love living on the West Coast now. I got to be honest.
That's it, man. That's it. We'll talk off the air about where we're living. You'll probably see me around town.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. D, thanks for doing this. It was great catching up with you, man.
Take care, man.
And I'll speak to you soon, D. Thank you so much. Dee Snider, everybody. And the new record is called Leave a Scar. What an incredible career. 40-plus years. I just got to say, it was a great guest today. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Matt Pinfield. This is KLOS New and Approved, and we'll be back with you next time.